listening to the Leftover Pizza Podcast. Welcome to Friday Night Frights.
Trick or treat!
Can't you kids read?
Yeah, the sign says free candy with rental of 2 or more tapes.
Kids. So gullible.
You know, I almost feel bad about lying to him, but ain't no way I'm giving all this free candy away.
Dude, don't feel bad. Jenkins never gives us anything close to a bonus, so we gotta take our wins where we can.
I mean, to be fair, it's not like we make the guy a ton of money.
Hey, no. I don't want to hear any sympathy for Jenkins on Halloween. It's our night.
All right, you're right. But man, I am so fucking bummed. We really have to pull a graveyard shift on Halloween night?
Yeah, bummed is an understatement. Stupid Jenkins. Keeping the store open till midnight? Does he really think people are going to be that desperate to rent scary movies?
No kidding. Aside from the few trick-or-treaters we've, tricked this evening, it's been a real ghost town around here. I think it's about time for a distraction. Please tell me you've got something, because I can't think straight. I've eaten myself into the absolute weirdest candy coma.
Brother, I've been waiting for this very moment. Check this out.
That's odd. An unmarked VHS tape? Do you even know what's on there?
Nope. I've been saving...
Hold that thought. Leftover pizza video.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Oh, how original. Anyways, you were saying?
Yeah, it's okay. So I've been saving this tape.
Again? Really? Leftover pizza video.
7 days.
Get a life. As you were saying, or have been saying.
Yeah, it's okay. I've been saving it for tonight. I figured it could be fun to check it out together. Who knows what weird and ominous things await us.
Well, hurry up and pop it in, man. Let's see what she's all about.
Next on Savan's Beetleborgs Metallics, it's Halloween and the monsters have their own idea of trick or treat. They're planning to eat the poor little unsuspecting trick or treaters who come to Hillhurst.
You see, kid, that's the trick. And you're the treat.
Isn't this just a bit too evil, even for you?
You may as well face it, we're not gonna let you get those kids.
Just when our heroes have their hands full, Nukas sends a monster to crash the Halloween party. Can the Beetleborgs turn Nukas' evil trick into a treat? Find out on Savan's Beetleborgs Metallics next.
Wow. Who would have thought we would uncover the Beetleborgs portion of the Fox Kids Halloween Screams program from 1997?
Not me. With all those fucking phone calls that we were getting before this, I really thought that we had some maniac waiting outside the store just ready to pounce on us and use this blank VHS tape as their excuse.
Speaking of Fox Kids from 1997, I don't know if you were much of a Fox Kids kind of young fella.
Yeah, I mean, who wasn't, really? You know, there was quite the lineup going on there. But here's the thing. Was this not from the Fox Kids network?
This was from the Fox Kids network, yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't really have many opportunities to watch it. As we've talked about in the past, I was a poor,
a poor, unfortunate soul.
yeah, that's good. I was a poor, unfortunate soul of a child. I didn't have cable. Did I ever tell a story, by the way, of why I didn't have cable as a kid?
Maybe.
I really think it boiled down to my dad not wanting to pay for cable, but he used me being quote-unquote bad as his excuse to literally rip the cable out of the wall one morning. The story goes that one morning I was watching Scooby-Doo, and I was probably like 2 years old, and he said goodbye to me, and I totally ignored him, and that pissed him off, so he ripped the cable out of the wall. Like, oh, you're gonna pay attention to me because you watch too much of that damn boob tube. But I really think he just wanted to save a few bucks every month. I think that's what it boiled down to. So now you've got more Derek lore and backstory. And so, yeah, no, I didn't get to watch Fox Kids very often because Derek didn't have a cable box or a cable hookup.
Yet you still buy him a Carvel cake every single year for his birthday. Weak, I tell you, weak.
That's right. And I go out of my way and open up those Twizzlers, let him get stale, and hand him a brick of stale Twizzlers as he prefers. I'm really a very good son.
He just hasn't seen it yet.
Yeah, well, one of these days he'll get it.
Yeah. So anyways, this was a really crazy time, I feel like, for the Fox Kids network. And this is right around the time when everything was kind of entering this extreme phase for all of kids franchises. So like, just to kind of further prove the point, this aired just before a new episode of Power Rangers Turbo and TMNT The Next Mutation.
Yeah, and it seemed like those are the ones that we remember, Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles. I mean, we don't need to get too much into it, because obviously the main attraction here is the Beetleborgs episode. But you catch bumpers here and there between commercial breaks, and there were some shows that I don't even think I've ever heard of that have been lost.
Oh, yeah.
Time. Like it was something about space something. Did you catch that one? It was an animated show.
No, I missed that one, I think.
I don't know. It was this cartoon I've never even heard of. We'll have to rewind the tape and look at it again, because maybe it's something that's worth exploring later. But I don't know. It feels like Fox Kids was kind of like the Wild Wild West for all these big shows that they had, like Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers. There was clearly a whole ton of these little shows that like we don't think about anymore.
Yeah, it's true. And I feel like Beetleborgs really does kind of land itself in there from time to time. Like, a lot of people do remember it, but there's also a handful of people who really don't and should remember Beetleborgs. But here's the thing about Beetleborgs. It just has a lot going on with it. Like, even I as a kid, I used to watch it all the time, and even I kind of forgot it. But like, all these other ones surrounding it were very similar.
There was, well, I'm sure there were plenty, but I was going to say, a big Beetleborgs fan I was as a kid. And I don't really remember anything about this. And in trying to piece together like what was happening throughout this episode,
Oh my god.
it just wasn't coming back to me. I was kind of like, well, I mean, we'll get into it,
Yeah.
obviously, but we're like, so there's kids who are kind of like Power Rangers, but they really lean into the them being kids aspect of this. And then, like, there's a house full of monsters, but the monsters aren't good monsters like you'd think that they would be.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of goes against what, if you were to create this show in your mind, how you would make it. And it was, like, not adding up. So I feel like I need to do a deep dive on Beetleborgs now, just to, like, get caught back up and maybe make this episode make a little bit more sense than it did.
So just real quick before we really get into it, I'll give you kind of a backstory of how Beetleborgs went. Obviously, you're probably picking up some similarities from the Power Rangers. It's another one of those Metal Hero, I think it's called Tokusatsu. While Power Rangers was based on Super Sentai, this was based on Juku B-Fighter for the first season, and then B-Fighter Kabuto for the second season. Yeah, I'm really holding it together with all these names.
You're doing better than I would. So
I appreciate that. I'll take that compliment. Unlike Power Rangers, Beetleborgs emphasizes on the sitcom elements rather than like a villain of the week kind of vibe. And with this episode, this is season 2, episode 19. So season 2 is where they start their metallics phase. I don't know if you caught that. Instead of Big Bad Beetleborgs, it's Beetleborgs Metallics.
Beetleborgs Metallics. Yes, I did notice that subtitle, and I was like, okay, I don't ever remember there being like, subtitles in different series. And I was wondering about that. We were just talking about how they're advertising Power Rangers Turbo. That would happen quite a bit, where there would be like new Power Rangers series right up till now, where it's, different subtitles and different casts and everything. Was that part of this? Like, was it a different Beetleborgs main cast, like for the kids or something?
No. So there was 2 seasons. The first season was Big Bad Beetleborgs. And at the end of that season, something, I can't remember exactly how it went, but the original bad guys, the Magnovores, were basically conquered, and in came a new bad guy, the Crustaceans. With that came new powers. So they get upgraded weapons, upgraded powers, upgraded vehicles, thus Beetleborgs Metallics.
Okay, so is that just sort of their way of explaining away the fact that it's technically 2 different series that they're pulling from? Like
yeah,
from season 1 to
I
season
think
2?
so.
It's gotta be, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Furthering this backstory, so they, like you said, they have these monsters that are in this haunted house, Hillhurst Mansion, and they're not good, they're bad. They also run into this guy named Flabber, who is kind of a mix of the genie from Aladdin, Jay Leno, and Elvis Presley, to accurately describe him.
Yeah, definitely picked up on the Leno vibes and obviously the Elvis, but I like that you brought up Genie as well, because he definitely has some of that, he's like magic, and it seems like he genuinely maybe a little bit of a stinker, but has like the kid's best interests at heart.
Oh, he definitely
That's
does.
how it felt to me, at least.
Yeah, he definitely does. He's actually the reason they got their powers in the first place. So they ran into this piano, which is like his genie home, and unleashed him. He gives the kids their powers. But the thing I think is weird about it is that these powers are actually of an existing comic book kind of superhero. So like Beetleborgs is its own thing in this universe. And when they get these wishes from Flabber, they're like, yeah, we want to be our favorite comic book superheroes. And he just makes them Beetleborgs. So it'd be like me finding a genie and being like, hey, I want to be a Ninja Turtle. Isn't that kind of weird?
You are desperately searching for that genie. I know this.
Yeah. Oh, you've heard this one before, have you?
Oh, it's all we ever talk about offline. You said, hey, man, I found this lamp today. Should I buy it and rub it?
Yeah, pretty much. So then we have the bad guys who have an artist. They just call him the cartoonist, but his name is Lay Fortune, and he draws the villains to terrorize the town. So it's not like an unheard of kind of thing, but it's a very different take on this conjuring bad guys. It's similar to how Rita Repulsa conjures her enemies for the Power Rangers.
Yeah, I kind of like that because they did it once in this episode with him, and they were talking about, oh, you need to make us a new monster. And I thought he was like a mad scientist and was going to go and create it in a lab somewhere. And then all of a sudden, he just had a drawing, and then they tapped it with a sword, and this thing is brought to life. And I was like, all right, that's rad. I can get down with that. If I remember correctly, there's definitely like an episode of Tales from the Crypt that does this exact thing, where a cartoonist, his drawings are coming to life.
I think you're right, yeah.
And then I believe, if I'm remembering the movie correctly, I could be misremembering it, but I think the movie Cellar Dweller also does this, where the kid draws a lot or something like that, and then his monster ends up coming to life as well. So we've seen it many times before, but it's kind of funny that like this is a big cornerstone of this series. Somebody was like, yeah, we're not going to have a mad scientist with a lab somewhere. No, he's just going to draw the characters and they're going to come to life. It encourages creativity. That's the learning aspect of the show, because this is the 90s and everything has to have a learning edge to it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, well, now that you've had a little bit of backstory for the Beetleborgs gang, what do you say we get into the plot a little bit here?
I think that's a great idea. And I do just want to mention up front, obviously, this is a Halloween episode. Everybody might be a little bit nervous that this might not be family friendly. It could be a little spooky. I do want to assure you and everybody in this store right now that Beetleborgs and Beetleborgs Metallics is rated Y because it's flabtastic fun for kids.
Flabtastic. Where did you get that from?
That's right. Right at the top of the show.
Right
you
here?
weren't paying attention.
I wasn't. No. Well, I was getting some popcorn. I can't do this without the popcorn.
Well, that's true. Yeah. So just want to let you know it's flabtastic fun.
Flabtastic. All right. So this, like I said, is episode 19 of season 2, entitled Halloween Haunted House of Horrors. The Halloween special. It's Halloween, and the monsters of Hillhurst Mansion are decorating indoors, and they get the idea to have a little bit of fun of their own. And what does that entail, Derek?
I'm gonna eat these fucking trick-or-treaters, man. I'm gonna crunch them fucking bones, brother.
Yeah. So to anybody who hasn't watched Beetleborgs before, you would think these monsters are probably good guys since they're there every single episode.
Yes, that's what I assumed, even just like, because again, I don't remember anything about this other than, Genie Elvis. I'm like, oh yeah, it's a group of ragtag monsters. The kids hang out there. It's all good fun. Like, these are gonna be like good guys, just misunderstood, right? Nah, that mummy is like, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go out and trick everybody to come here, and then we're gonna suck their blood and feast on their guts. And it's like, Jesus Christ, what
The monsters feel really out of place. It's almost like they're kind of trying to capitalize a little bit on Goosebumps, perhaps, since they're also kind of coming out on the Fox Kids network. And what doesn't make sense to me is, okay, they have a Frankenstein, a Dracula, they have a Mummy, the Wolfman. Oh, and then they have random Star Wars characters like Jawa. Like,
I did notice that. He pops up a little bit later on too, and there's some lineage there, wasn't there? Like, isn't the Jawa related to maybe it's Dracula or something like that? I don't really know. I think technically there is a connection there. It's somebody's relative, one of those monsters. But just I don't know. You're right. As much as I like the monsters there, and I did, like, they're fun, I just like can't wrap my mind around the fact that they are there every single episode. Like, this wasn't a one-off for the Halloween special. They're there all the time. And they're being bad all the time, presumably. It's like, why are you here? What purpose are you serving other than causing hijinks, I guess?
What I was kind of thinking, and I hate bringing another comparison to Power Rangers, but I felt like these characters are kind of the Beetleborgs version of Bulk and Skull, who are like the two bumbling characters from the Power Rangers who are always kind of there in like their own little subplot between each episode. But that could be a stretch.
That's probably true. No, that's probably true. And then I guess if we zoom out a little bit and look at the landscape as a whole, like, You watched the Toys That Made Us.
Oh yeah,
on Netflix, didn't you?
Yeah.
And that whole Power Rangers episode was basically the guy who created them talking about how he, got a license to print money back in the 1990s. Like, that's basically what the whole spiel was, is like, I was so tuned into what kids wanted, I could write blank checks for any amount of money and I could cash them within like 6 months. I have a feeling that he was involved with this, and he was like, well, look it, kids are really starting to love the Universal monsters again. Kids love Power Rangers. Let's just fucking combine the two, and it's going to print us more money. Like, that's going to be the only reason why they were inserted in there. He was probably just like, kids are really loving monsters right now. I don't know. Do Power Rangers again, but add Frankenstein in there too, I guess.
They're checking out the Goosebumps books all the time in the libraries, the scholastic readers. I mean, come on, this got to work. And what's funny is it did. This was a very popular series, even though it only had 2 seasons. The only reason it was cut off is because they ran out of stock footage from the shows that they were borrowing from in Japan.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Because obviously with all these shows that really borrow heavily from other Japanese shows that already exist, it's kind of like, well, wouldn't it benefit you if it is this popular to just like pay up and just shoot new action scenes just
totally
to keep
agree.
it rolling?
Mm-hmm.
And so it seems weird to me that they're like, well, we ran out of Japanese footage, we can't make this anymore. It's like, really? If it was really as popular as it seemed to be when I was a kid, why wouldn't you want to keep that gravy train rolling, man?
Hey, man, easy come, easy go.
Yeah, that's true. No, we'll get another one. We're not worried about it.
Yeah. So, back to the plot here. The Mummy leaves to lure unsuspecting trick-or-treaters of Chatterville back to the mansion for a party, so he and the other monsters can obviously eat these kids. The secret gets out pretty quickly. Flabber comes in and asks Dracula where Mums went. He's like, well, he went to go get kids so we could eat them. He didn't really try.
Yeah, cops to it immediately. He's like, oh, we're eating kids tonight. And a lot of them, by the way. And my favorite part is that Flabber is like clearly opposed to it, but not opposed enough to actually stop it from happening. He's just like, you guys, you're not supposed to do that. And then he just like, that's it. Like, kids just walk through his front door. And instead of even warning the kids, these are real monsters and they're trying to eat your bones, he's just like, hey, I gotta make this a fun party, but at the same time, I have to get you out of here so you don't die. It's like, not to draw too many comparisons, but it kind of reminds me of The Dead Hate the Living, The Dead Hate the Living. When they find a dead body and that girl opposes the use of the dead body in the movie, and then instead of like doing literally anything about it, she's just like, I'm gonna go in that room over there and sulk. And that was it, Not
gonna call the cops or anything. I'm just gonna walk away until the next scene. Yeah, it's totally like that.
Similar to that, I feel, but I digress. rant over.
So like we've been saying, it's Halloween night. Flabber then possesses a pumpkin that's near the 3 Beetleborg kids while they're out trick-or-treating and tells them what's going on with the monsters. Mums is out there getting kids, they're going to round them up and they're going to eat them. So figure something out. The kids pull a fast one on their mom who's chaperoning them, and I guess they're going to find 3 other kids to kind of put in their place. So they're like just asking them to do this favor, convincing these kids to do this for them. So they swap costumes and they go back to the Hillhurst mansion and take care of business.
Well, okay, well, hold on, because this is important. Because first off, I really thought that this kid's mom, I thought she was wildly irresponsible.
Oh, she totally is.
They passed her off. They were like, oh, she's just a big kid. She loves Halloween. And I was like, all right, that's believable enough. And then you find out that, you know, these 3 kids ditch the mom who is way too into trick-or-treating to go back to the mansion. And this is where I'm getting confused because I thought the same thing. I thought that she just mistaked these 3 kids for being in costume and like just they did the old swapperoo like, oh, oops, I thought this group of 3 kids were my kids. And here is where it gets weird because at the end, you'll notice that the costumes that her kids change back into are not the same as the costumes from the group of 3 kids, you know, the substitutes. So I'm thinking it wasn't explained very well, but it almost seems like maybe Flabber was up to a little hijinks of his own because they were all dressed like skeletons and the skulls looked very real on the imposters compared to the kids' actual costumes. So, I'm not sure if Flabber, like, manifested 3, like, ghouls or something to follow her around and pretend to be the kids all night. But either way, I am putting it back on her for not noticing if that's really the case, that her children were actually demons from the Netherrealm, you know?
Oh, maybe. I'm not sure. One of the Beetleborg kids is actually talking to the group, and he gets, like, all hoity-toity about it. And it almost feels like a Marvel situation where he's like, now listen, kids, you're doing this for the betterment of mankind, blah, blah, blah. Like, he's actively talking to these kids, like, you're doing this as a favor to the Beetleborgs. So, maybe?
I don't know. I also I think, just zoned out half the time. So, you know, that could be me just making shit up. So, you know, just disregard everything that I say from here on out because it's probably for the best.
Well, anyways.
What I will say, what I will say, because this is very important to me, but not important to anything else that we're going to talk about tonight. This might explain why I was so hyperfixated on one thing and not anything else in this episode. It was around this time where I see the mummy out and about.
Oh, yeah.
And the way that he's talking and moving around and the way that his jaw is seated. Did he remind you of Jim Carrey as well, or is that just me?
It was a little Jim Carrey-esque. I could see that. And I almost wonder, I mean, you know, Jim Carrey's pretty much at the top of his game at this point in time. I'm wondering if they kind of took some of that inspiration from it.
I feel like they did. Like he was sort of talking almost like, what is this, Fire Marshal Bill, and almost like the way that the jaw was seated, and obviously, it's a horrible face mask that he has
it's
on.
pretty
It doesn't
bad,
move with his actual mouth. Like the way that the jaw is lined up, it almost looks like Fire Marshal Bill too. I was like, are they intentionally going for a Jim Carrey thing here? And I spent way too much time analyzing that character throughout this whole episode. So if I miss other things, forgive me. It's because I was totally hypnotized and transfixed on him and him alone.
Oh man, that's a bummer because during his scene, there's just so much goodness going on in the background. I don't know if you caught all that, but like all the neighborhood decorations and stuff for like a small TV series like this, they really put a lot of fucking work into that place.
At the mansion or in the neighborhood?
Both. The mansion was pretty good, but the neighborhood itself, like, for how long this neighborhood was really in the spotlight, probably not more than like 3 minutes tops. It felt like all the best parts of Hocus Pocus, so like all the trick-or-treating scenes, it felt like all of them wrapped into one.
Well, okay. It did if you're not paying too much attention to the background.
But if you zoom in a little bit more, it's
But
not as
I was
good.
really paying attention to the background, and what I think was happening was they bought like 2 packs of generic mid-90s Halloween decorations, most of which were just lawn signs. And
I've seen some lawn signs.
there's
Yeah.
probably like a set of 5 lawn signs, I'm going to say. And it was like they spread it out over one lawn, and then they would move on to the next house, and they were using the same lawn signs. So it just felt like they were going to different houses and shooting this show, and then moving those lawn signs down, and you're like, damn, all of these houses are so well decorated. And I don't know, they looked great, don't get me wrong. I loved the overall vibe of this. But I feel like that's what was happening. They were like, why decorate a whole neighborhood when we can go one house at a time?
Oh man, I don't know. I have to disagree a little bit here. You didn't see that fucking Griswold house in the background with like nothing but orange lights that engulfed this entire house? Like, holy shit. They really want this extent for this little show?
Again, must I remind you that while I am yammering on, I was totally transfixed
so.
on the mummy, okay?
All right. I'll let it pass this time.
Give me a gimme here, okay?
Okay. So anyways, Mums eventually lures an entire group of kids up to this mansion, and Flabber has to figure out a way to distract the monsters away from the kids and vice versa. And the Beetleborg kids divert the attention of the monsters. All the while, this evil dude, Nukas, he's this like fucking dinosaur looking. I don't even know what he is.
Yeah, yeah, he was something else.
Yeah.
I saw a band last Halloween that were dressed up like Transformers, and this guy reminded me of
Kinda looked like
them
him,
in the
yeah.
makeup that they had on. But hey, wait, before you get into that, I do want to mention one thing. You're leaving out the most important part. So all these kids walk into the mansion for this party. I think it's super funny that all these kids are walking in and the monsters are there waiting for them with oversized cutlery. Like they're just being super obvious.
It's very Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah, it is very wily. You're absolutely right about that. Yep, that's it.
Did you catch the part where Mums rips his arms off and like hands it to a kid?
Yeah, the kid hated that.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh shit, you're
These
a
guys are
real mummy
serious."
now."
Yeah. All right. So while this is happening, Nukas and Horribel are out plotting their next villain. So they call for the cartoonist Lay Fortune to sketch up this villain who just happens to be a scorpion demon named El Scorpio. I guess they were really running low on stock footage because the whole Scorpion for Halloween doesn't really... I'm not seeing the connection here other than, hey, this is what we got.
Well, I mean, like, are these kids from Arizona? Like, are they from out west or something?
They're from Chatterville.
Like a desert location? Maybe that's like a real threat to them, you know?
Well, if it's a desert location, you'd feel like they'd probably just be immune to scorpions at that point.
That's true. Well, then maybe that's what makes it so scary. Maybe they live in Salem, Mass, and they say, oh my God, a scorpion. What the hell are you doing here? And big as well? Is that the normal size for scorpions? I don't know, because I've never seen one before.
All right, so now Flabber, he's trying to get these kids to leave, but they won't because they promised him candy, right? Instead of trying a little bit harder, they do this kind of Kazam moment where there's like candy raining from the sky inside of this mansion, and he just starts dancing and playing music and totally giving into this whole party thing. This is at the point where I'm like, this looks so familiar, and all that was running through my head were all these like Universal Halloween commercials where it's just monsters kind of partying. This kind of had that written all over it, very comparable to that vibe.
And a whole bunch of bikini-clad women came out. And then I think at one point there was even a talking dog with sunglasses on, talking about how cool this party was.
Yeah. Look out, everyone, it's Spuds McKinsey!
Oh, man. I would pay to see that for real. Goddamn.
But anyways, so now the Beetleborg kids are kind of luring the monsters away from the kids, and they somehow get them in this weird trap area so they can't get out. And then El Scorpio comes and crashes the party.
Okay, so quickly, what I will say is I do remember you're talking about the bookcase, right? When the bookcase swivels
Yes.
and does that classic spooky tunnel gag. I mean, we've seen it, numerous times. It goes back to the Universal Monsters movies. We've seen it in Young Frankenstein. Yeah, basically the bookcase just spins around. There's a couple kids there, and then when it spins back around, they're gone. They've been dumped to a spooky secret tunnel, and that's where the monsters are waiting for them. What I will say is they made a mansion playset back in the day. I think we've talked about this. I think I've even showed you the home video.
Yeah, the Hillhurst Mansion playset. Oh, yeah, totally.
Well, I was going to say, I think I've actually showed you, I found some home video of, I got this.
Yeah.
Probably in 97 or 98. And I was trying to think back, so I rewatched my home video footage of me playing with it the day after my birthday. And sure enough, that bookcase is actually on the playset itself.
Oh, man, it's canon with the fucking toys. Wow, that's so cool, dude.
It's canon with the toys. Yes, exactly. So I just thought that was fun. And I just wanted to mention that because I know, I mean, when else are we ever going to get to talk about the friggin' Beetleborgs playset ever again? But I also do want to mention, too, you mentioned that, the monsters kind of get trapped in the spooky secret tunnel there. And right before that happens, the girl, the Beetleborg girl, do you remember what she does? Because my jaw was on the floor.
Does she, pick up the lamp and she just bends it in half?
Yes, she literally picks up the lamp, folds it in half, and it scares the monster. She does that to assert her dominance.
Yeah.
And put them in their place a little bit. And I was like, holy shit, that kid's badass. She has my respect.
Oh, yeah. If I watched this back in 97, I would be like, wow, I want to be just like them.
I would have been trying to bend lamps all the time. My mom would have been grounding me left and right.
Yeah, totally. So then soon after all this, El Scorpio comes in and crashes the party, right? He's running outside into this weird empty space. It looks kind of like a factory, but with no machinery inside of it. It's super random.
The Beetleborg kids chase him out of the mansion.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay. He's going to be running loose in the neighborhood, terrorizing trick-or-treaters, wreaking havoc, typical Halloween night prank stuff, right? And then that's when you realize, oh no, these kids just randomly run into a warehouse. And you're like, what? Why are they in a warehouse? What the hell? And then that's the most brilliant part of all. That's when it cuts to the Japanese footage and then they start fighting. I was like, oh my god, that was shameless. They didn't even try to make an attempt to make that fight fit into this episode thematically. They were literally like, I don't know, we gotta get these kids into a warehouse, so make them run out of the house. And the next thing you know, he's in a warehouse, there's pallets all over the place, and then cut to the Japanese footage.
I don't know if you noticed in a couple of the scenes, but there's actually a few snippets where you could see the Japanese monsters in there that don't quite match the one that they're fighting there. There's one specific part, it's probably a fraction of a second, where it's two monsters, and then it goes back to the scorpion.
I didn't catch it, but I'll tell you what, it was so clearly shameless.
Yeah, it was.
How
day.
they squeezed that into this episode. Even the video quality is way different. And this is off of a TV recording. So I can't even make the excuse of well, on an old TV, you never would have picked up on the difference in quality between Beetleborgs main and then the Japanese segment. It's no, this is off of an old TV recording. You could clearly tell that the video quality in the fight scene was worse. They just didn't even give a shit. They were like, kids are never going to figure this shit out. And it's well, maybe kids didn't. But did you count on 30-something-year-old men 30 years later going over this with a fine-tooth comb? Because we are going to give you grief, buddy.
What I thought was interesting is how short the fight was. You expected this fight kind of, or at least I expected this fight to last a little bit longer than what it did. They're kind of hyping this up this guy's a badass, basically, and they do this little thing where the girl scans the guy to see where his weak spots are after getting their asses kicked within 5 seconds. And she's like, oh no, I can't find any weak spots. He must not have any. And then one of the kids runs in. He's like, I'll find some. He gets his ass kicked. He loses his tail, loses his claws, and they're like, oh, I bet you're not any good without your claws and your tail. and they just absolutely fucking destroy him. There's like no struggle whatsoever. They make pretty easy work of him, like relatively fast. This fight probably lasts like 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the biggest detriment to this episode is the fact that it had to include Beetleborgs content. Like, it is inherently, I think, better without the whole Beetleborg shit going on. You know what I mean? Like, it's more or less a great Halloween episode that just gets bogged down by the fact that, oh, right, we actually have to show a little bit of fighting to make people realize and remember what this whole show is all about. I would really actually like to see this with that shit cut out of it, because I feel like it would be just as good, if not even a little bit better, because it might make a little bit more sense than trying to shoehorn the Beetleborgs into it.
Are you saying like scrap El Scorpio and everything? Just like have it be the monsters in the mansion?
Yeah, I mean, like, I get it. I know why he's there. The show is Beetleborgs. It's not, you know, the Hillhurst Mansion show or whatever the fuck. It's it might have been better if it was for this one episode. That's all I'm saying.
When you take a look at the grand scheme of things and you're looking at like Power Rangers when they did their Christmas special, like it was literally just Power Rangers people kind of interacting with each other. I mean, a very select few of the group, but nonetheless, it was effective. It worked. And I see your point. I definitely could have seen that working here too, where it's mainly just the monsters causing mischief. They have to deal with the monsters and the kids keep them away. Yeah, I could have seen that working a little bit more in its favor.
There was just already so much going on with
so
the
much
trick-or-treating and the monsters and the kids at the party. Like, we didn't need El Scorpio.
No.
But I guess we were going to get him either way. So it's not that it's bad. It's just that, like, I don't see the point, you know? Maybe it's for those kids who literally would have lost their minds if they didn't see the Beetleborgs in a Beetleborgs episode.
So now with the monster defeated, the group of kids in the mansion are all being escorted out by Flabber, and we're left with one little shithead kid, and he's just trying to offend Flabber as best as he can. You might have scared all the other kids, but you didn't scare me. And he kind of pulls this headless horseman jack-o'-lantern head gag kind of thing, where like his head morphs down into his body and a jack-o'-lantern head comes up, and it scares the shit out of the kid.
Yeah, that was kind of a fun ending.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. And I thought Flabber was going to be way more annoying to me than he ended up being by the end.
He was like, docile in this episode, I'll admit.
I can get down with him and how he's been acting throughout this whole thing. Like, he's a good guy, at least here. At least tonight, he's been a good guy. Despite the fact that he did start a conga line. And I am a firm believer that anybody who starts a conga line should be jailed immediately for a minimum of 10 years. But that's just me, my personal preferences.
Well, to be fair, he's already crossed the line with giving a bunch of kids candy in an abandoned mansion, so
you know,
it's not really helping his rep.
Right, exactly. Can we how come everybody was doing conga lines back then? You realize, you know, that ever crossed your mind?
It had once or twice.
I feel like I couldn't go to a family gathering where my aunt wasn't trying to get one started. And like, it's always to Celebration by Kool and the Gang too. You're just like, come on, we're doing a conga line. It's like, why? Why are we doing this? No, stop. I'm glad that I don't see it that much anymore.
It's either the conga line or the funky chicken. We can get rid of both of them.
Yeah, but keep the Macarena. I'm cool with the Macarena.
Oh, yeah, totally.
That one stays.
So then after Flabber scares the shithead kid away, he then promptly wishes us all a happy Halloween.
I have to tell you, you know, that's it. And I did have a flabtastic fun time.
Did you? Would you recommend this? What are your closing thoughts and feelings about this nice little Halloween special here?
I actually really liked this, especially going in with zero expectations. I mean, you see, there's no label on that VHS tape. That could have been anything on that tape, you know? Could have been a lot of questionable things or just bad things in general. And what a fun surprise. Nice Halloween surprise. I really liked it. Honestly, I was thinking the whole time, I was like, man, maybe I need to watch a few more Beetleborgs episodes. Like, I I kind of really enjoyed it and wasn't expecting to as much as I did.
Any day of the week, I would definitely refer anyone to Beetleborgs because it's just such a weird product of its time. It's a weird blend of action and monsters that don't really need to be there. Another classic tokusatsu, quirky kids show kind of love that was being spread in the mid to late 90s with Power Rangers and stuff. And this episode is specific. It's really fun. It has a little bit of Halloween atmosphere, campy horror, lightweight action, we'll say. But it was fun. It was definitely fun. And I'm glad that we uncovered it here at the Leftover Pizza video store.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would watch it again. Much like Monster Mash the movie. I could see myself revisiting this.
Ooh, that sounds like a nice double feature.
It actually does. I feel I was
Fitting.
actually getting a lot of those same vibes, between the monsters and the campiness and all.
You know
of
what?
that.
You're right.
Yeah, I definitely could sense some through lines there. They felt like maybe like cousins,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, especially Dracula. I feel like Dracula, the two Draculas definitely fit well together. The mummified remains of Elvis Presley would probably get along pretty well with mums here. I see it, man. I see the vision.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And one last thing, you said you would recommend it. Yeah, I want to double down and I want to say if I met the president, any president,
Any of them.
I would immediately ask him if he's watched the Fox Kids 1997 block with this episode of Beetleborgs. And when the president inevitably told me no, I would pull out this tape and hand it to him and say, Tonight's the night.
It's tonight. Yeah. President dead or alive. If we resurrected Abraham Lincoln, he would be watching the 1997 Halloween Screams Fox Kids Network special.
Yeah, and I would make him do that before I even showed him a computer,
Just wow him right off the bat.
Yeah, he'd be like, what could possibly top this? And I'd be like, you ever heard of an iPhone, idiot? And then just whip it out, show him Flappy Bird,
Listen, Mr. President, have you ever heard of Pornhub?
Well, that was fun,
Yeah.
but did you see the clock? We just passed midnight, which means that we're technically closed.
Oh, man. Finally. I didn't think this day was ever going to come to an end.
God damn
What
it.
the
It's
fuck?
midnight.
Leftover Pizza video.
7 days.
Oh, it's for you, buddy.
Oh, okay. Hello?
7 days.
Oh my God. This person just said 7 days. Did they call and did they say this the last time that you picked up the phone too?
Yeah, they did. Word for word.
My God, do you know what this means?
No, Derek. What could it all mean?
I don't know. We're going home. I'm not dealing with this shit tonight.
All right, man. Grab the candy. Turn off the lights. Let's lock up.
All right, sounds good to me.